The Super Speedway Podcast is a Dream Bigger media production. For news, photos, show notes, and information about advertising on the podcast, visit www.thesuperspeedway.com.
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Super Speedway.
Welcome to episode 64 of the Super Speedway Podcast, recorded Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. I'm your host, Eric Young, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, James Cush. James, I'm a little under the weather this week. I was sick all weekend. I had to try and ask questions in the press conferences at MIS and hope my voice worked when I did it. So if my voice crackles or I cough or anything like that, that's what the deal is. I think I'm sick all the time. But anyway, how are you?
I'm good. I was going to ask how you were because you're kind of the hardest working man in the sport last weekend.
I did beat Bob Pockris to the media center on Friday morning at MIS. So that is exactly a feather in my cap.
That's exactly where I was going to go with that. He beat Bob Pockris.
He beat me Saturday and Sunday though, so I'll give him that.
If people ever doubt that, just let them know I have the picture still on my phone that you sent me. So we're good.
There you go.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, it was the Firekeepers Casino 400 or Firekeepers Casino. Let's see. What do we get in 266?
Yeah, there you go.
The Firekeepers Casino 266 this weekend at Michigan International Speedway.
I think they ran maybe 400 miles total during the entire weekend between the Xfinity and the Cup Series.
Yeah, we had 182 miles in the Xfinity Series race. So.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah. I'm shuffling papers because instead of looking on the screen today, I actually have papers from the media center with unofficial results at the time.
The hardest working man in the business right now.
Something like that.
Look at him go. Look at him go.
So, and I know, James, you need to treat me differently from here forward, too, because I am a TV star now. I was on TV in Victory Lane. I
texted you. Yeah, I texted you right away as I was watching Victory Lane, and there you were. And I was really hoping you'd text me back on live TV, but you were obviously busy. So.
I was actually videoing, which I never posted the video. I was videoing the crew reacting when you texted me, but I did see your text immediately on my watch, and then my watch lit up like crazy as a bunch of other people texted me and said they saw me in Victory Lane too.
I was the guy texting the guy who was on TV, so that is good news for me as well.
You were the first one. You were officially the first one.
Well, yeah.
So Victory Lane was interesting at Michigan because we had rain at MIS, and they previously the temporary Victory Lane at MIS has been in the garage, but this year. For both the Xfinity race and the Cup Series race, they did it in the opening to pit road from the garage area underneath. There's a little bridge that goes underneath the suites, and that's where it was, and it's cramped down there, I'll tell you what. So as I'm standing in Victory Lane, I'm barely squeezed between the car and the guardrail and a couple of reporters around me taking pictures.
I was surprised they did it there. When I saw that that's where Victory Lane was, I was like, man, that's got to be... Because, we've been down there, and obviously you were down there, and it's, like you said, tight quarters in that little spot. And it's not like it's one giant open area. They have, there's like two ways to get through there. So it's not skinny by any means.
It's pretty tight. So anyway, have we even said it yet? Clint Bowyer gets the win, Michigan International Speedway. Great call at the end. Mike Bugaravich, Bugga goes for 2 tires. He said that, the post-race was good because Clint was all confident. He says, Bugga never makes these, gutsy calls like this. Usually he's more conservative, and he doesn't quite go too wild on the calls. And so he was really proud of Bugga for making this call. And Mike says, I thought everybody was going for 2. So it wasn't a gutsy call at all. He just thought he was doing what everybody else was doing. But either way, Clint's the only one who goes for 2. Casey Kane stayed out and then pitted right before the restart, and Clint holds off Kevin Harvick for the win in the 2-lap shootout before...
the shocker.
Yeah, before Ricky Stenhouse brings the race to a halt, probably at the best possible time because it was raining immediately after that, and they weren't running any longer than that anyway. So I think it kind of worked out that we got a little shootout at the end and kind of knew where the finish was going to be, but not quite. It wasn't like a lot of rain races where you're just kind of not sure. We knew at the time of day it was that it was done when it rained, and we knew the rain was really close. So we were racing for a point that was a lot more definitive than a lot of rain races. So it made it. I think it took the annoyance of a race being rained out of it with that happening. So we'll talk a little bit about the race in a minute. I put this in Twitter. Sorry, James, I'm kind of just taking over
do
here.
your thing.
Clint Bowyer tweets Monday after he gets up. Dreamed we won Michigan. Reality. Woke up with a massive hangover on a week-long vacation with kids screaming, phone dead, wife pissed, brother outside puking, and can't find my flip-flops. Yep, we must have won.
The man celebrates like nobody in the business. I tell you what.
The media center at MIS is there's a doorway in the middle, and to the one side is where they have like the bathrooms and there's a food area and stuff, and then to the right there's a pretty decent hallway down to where the actual media center is. James, you know, you've been in there.
Yep.
And first of all, Clint took forever to get in there, and he comes in, and we couldn't see him, of course, but as soon as he walked in the door, you hear him yelling, and the NASCAR spokesperson's up at the podium waiting for him, and she says, "Well, I think Clint's on his way."
You were in that was, I tell you what, maybe the two most exciting press conference rooms in the last year or so. I mean, we had Bubba Wallace last year coming in screaming.
Yeah.
And yelling at everybody to be excited. And then, the Clint Bowyer, I guess, extravaganza.
Yeah, I tweeted out, too. You can check Twitter. I'll try to throw it in the show notes on the website as well. But actually, it is on the website. It's in one of the stories, the story of Clint Bowyer winning the race. I embedded the tweet in it. But he did his crew came in, snuck in. And I saw him walk in, and I knew something was happening. They're over there, open up Gatorade bottles, and it's like a couple of them were taking swigs. It's like they're not going to drink those Gatorade bottles. And Clint was kind of keeping an eye on him, and then he let his guard down. And I had my camera. I was taking pictures. It's like, no, I'm grabbing the phone because this is going to be a video moment. So I grabbed my phone, and just as soon as I saw him start moving forward, I hit record and got the whole them dumping a bunch of Gatorade on Clint. And I was going to pull some of the audio from the press conference, but there's so much audio from the press conference, and I pulled a lot of audio for today that I didn't bother doing it, but it was entertaining. So NASCAR.com has a whole press conference up on their YouTube page. So go to search YouTube for NASCAR, go to their YouTube page, and watch the whole press conference because it's good stuff. He's really
definitely the most excited winner. I think his last two wins have been. He's just like, I think he's been down the road now.
Yeah,
struggled for so long that these wins, he really cherishes them.
He's eating them up, man, and he loves it. It's good.
I mean, he went 5 years without winning a race, and he had a pretty much good success up until that point.
Well, and 2 years ago, that frustration of driving for the underfunded team, and then coming to Stewart-Haas, and then last year struggling too.
Yeah.
This year is just like, I'm telling you, there's just no pressure on that team right now. Period. The only one with pressure is Kurt Busch. And he's not feeling it because look at how he's running.
And the points there's been so few winners so far. So many guys just racking up wins that, Kurt can, safely point his way all the way if he has to. But I think he's in good shape.
Kurt's in that position where his career is winding down. He knows it. He's toward the end. He's just enjoying it. I really feel like he's just enjoying it. I tell you what, he was happy all weekend. I got a couple of pictures. When he was in the car, he was focused. But when he was out of the car, he was joking with fans, laughing. I mean, complete opposite of his brother, who was, had the normal sourpuss face on all weekend long.
Well, that's another guy too, where he had a couple of rocky years where his career could have either, been over, or he could have got another chance, and he made the most of his second chance. So he's doing good too. That whole Stewart, we probably should note that the Stewart-Haas cars were 1, 2, 3.
Yes, first time ever,
dominant.
First time ever in history for Stewart-Haas, and the first time it's happened since the 90s, I think.
Since 2008 was the last time. Yep, 2008. I think it was the Hendrick. No, it was the Roush Brigade finished 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I know they were talking about it in the media center. It was longer than what everybody thought it was. Yeah, like there were people. I think Gluck said in his podcast he thought Stewart-Haas had done it before, and I kind of did too, but they haven't. So they've run 1, 2, and 3 in races before, but they've never finished 1, 2, and 3.
And the guy who led the least out of the 3 was the guy who ended up winning the race.
Right, exactly.
Harvick and Busch combined for almost 100 laps between the two of them, and then and then Bowyer snuck in there and got the W.
Yeah, Kevin Harvick leads the most laps, 49 laps in the day. Kurt Busch leads 46. Bowyer only led 8, but they were the last 8, and that's all that mattered for him.
That is good. I mean, the only other guy who really led was, we had
Ryan
Blaney up there.
Ryan Blaney led 15, and Casey Kane led 11.
Yeah, I was gonna say surprising move for the Chevys, and Larson led 1, but he had other troubles on the day. So
Larson was mad. He tweeted afterwards that he threw it away because he had a fast car, and he did because he came through the field.
Yeah, I was I was, watching the race early, and I thought, oh boy, I might have my chance to give Eric a hard time on the podcast, but then he spun it out, which is a bummer. I was hoping to see him actually give it a real shot for Fuller, but it just wasn't in the cards for him that day. And that was a weird race too. So
yeah,
it was a good run. 3 in a row at one track is nothing to shake nothing to shake your head at.
No, exactly. And I mean, it was a disappointing finish, but definitely had a good car on the day.
For sure.
So let's talk a little bit. There was a little bit of controversy during the race. First of all, let's say, I don't know if it's because I was there and got to see it, but I know being there last year, it wasn't like this. There was a lot of news, I feel like, that generated this weekend at Michigan International Speedway. A lot of stuff worth talking about. We're going to talk about it tonight. There's no Cup race this weekend, so we aren't previewing a race, so we'll take a little bit more time. And I've got some audio to play from press conferences, and some of it's a little bit long, but I think it's all worth discussing. So the first thing I want to talk about is this was a controversial thing. A lot of the media members were talking about it. People were going crazy about it on Twitter. I personally didn't think it was that big of a deal, and I kind of like NASCAR's rule on it. But at the end of stage 1, we had a caution, and there were like 2 laps to go before the end of the stage. And NASCAR decided, first of all, they decided it was going to be a quickie yellow. They were going to open pit road. And then on that lap around, they decided, no, we're not going to open pit road. We're going to restart the race we're going to give 1 to go at 2 laps. They're going to take a green and white and then come around for the green flag, and then they're going to come around for the green, white checkered thing. So instead of opening the stage or opening pit road during the caution, they kept pit road closed. It did mess Kenseth up because he had flat tires, but personally, I think he was going to get penalized anyway because he had to pit. So he had flat tires. He spun. So no biggie to me. But anyway, so a lot of controversy with it. After the race, NASCAR made Richard Buck from NASCAR available to talk about it, and we met with him behind the NASCAR hauler. So this is what Richard Buck had to say about that call.
It's pretty much our normal procedure. We close the pits with 2 laps to go at the end of the stage, and that's basically what happened. We make every effort to come back to a green flag finish if we can before the end of the stage. But if we can't, we've told the competitors, and they've agreed, that we're not going to do a half cycle. We're not going to open the pits and then not be able to get a portion of the teams through it and then not be able to get back to the green. So we've done that multiple times in different scenarios as they unfold, but that's what happened today. We closed the pits with 2 laps to go and came to the green checkered, and that's how it finished.
So essentially that the end of the stage takes precedence over the typical opening of pit road during an average or the normal caution period.
There's many scenarios that have come up. Our goal is to finish under racing conditions, so we have a good finish for our fans. And so depending on how the dynamic situation's unfolding, like you saw today, it unfolded. We were able to, which was agreed upon, and talked about with the competitors, we were able to keep the pits closed without the possibility of anybody running out of fuel or altering the outcome that way, and come back to a green to green checkered finish.
It seemed like maybe there was some confusion because I could have sworn I heard you say quickie yellow. But before I could have sworn I heard pits open, quickie yellow, 1 to go.
So as it all unfolds, Bob,
right.
There's a lot of stuff happening in a short period, and we have a check and balance system. So the first portion was the pit light was closed, okay, and then we determined that there was 2 as it then was coming open for a quickie yellow. We called that, and then we realized immediately that wasn't the issue. We were within 2 to go, and we closed it back before anybody had the opportunity to come down pit road.
And normally when you close it with 2 to go, do you close it when the leader would normally hit the start-finish line with 2 to go, or do you usually start it? Yeah. Okay, so here you theoretically closed it a little bit earlier than you normally would if it was under green?
It's a dynamic situation, same way that we finish the stages. We'll try every opportunity that we can to allow the top 10, because they're points positions, to cross under heated competition the start-finish line, and that's a lot of times why you won't see us put the yellow out until the leader's on the back. So in the stage racing, there's a lot of dynamics that go into it, and we feel that our checks and balances came into play, and everything came off the way that we had explained and have done it before in that type of situation.
So this was a complaint I had last year after the Xfinity race at Michigan, where they had a caution late in a stage and they ended up running multiple laps under caution to finish the stage out, and it just was ridiculous because now you got a 5-lap caution when it probably would have only been a 2-lap caution otherwise. So this solves that issue. Obviously brings some question in. James, what do you think about the answer that they gave you? Are you good with it?
Oh yeah, I'm totally good with it. And I was actually going to bring that up. Was, you were at that Xfinity race, and I was watching that race on TV, and I distinctly remember that because I was like, man, this is a long caution that doesn't need to be that way. So yeah,
Right.
I'm totally cool with it. Yeah,
Good.
get those cautions in quick, and let's get back to racing as soon as we can. Absolutely.
Well, and not only that, a lot of times these happen. You get a caution and then a caution and then a caution, and when you have 2 cautions back to back, you don't need to open pit road. Personally,
Yeah, absolutely.
I
We're going to
think-
pit anyway.
I think this whole 2 to 3 laps per caution period for even a little spin with no debris on the track is too much sometimes. I think
Yeah,
we're too anxious
go.
to open pit road. So,
Absolutely. And getting these guys to race for the stage. You don't want to end a stage under caution if at all possible. So whatever you got to do to make it so that these guys have to battle for it, is a good thing. And because there's playoff points online, that's a big deal.
right. Exactly. So there was another controversial, well, it wasn't really a controversial call. It wasn't a proud day in the tower for NASCAR. There were a lot of lines crossed, and it was a rainy day, and they were trying to get this show in. They were doing everything they could to get it in. So at the end of the race, and I don't know how much of this went on TV, if any, because I wasn't listening to the TV broadcast at the time. I was listening to NASCAR's radio. But so the caution comes out. They're running their laps at the end. They're radioing to Brett Bodine in the pace car, asking what the track looks like. Is it good? And Brett's coming around 1 and 2. He says, I think we're okay. And he comes to the front stretch, and as he's going into 1 the next time, he says, I think it's starting to change color. And he gets to the back stretch, and he says, yeah, we've definitely lost the track. And as they come out of turn 2, they tell him, okay, bring the field down pit road. And as he's coming around the back stretch, they're making the decision in the tower that instead of that, we're going to bring him by the front stretch and wave the checkered flag like we did in the Xfinity race on Saturday and end the race. Well, that message didn't get to Brett. It got to the teams, but it didn't get to Brett. So Brett comes down pit road like he was told and brings down the first 3 cars down pit road, and Kyle Busch stays out, and the rest of the field behind Kyle Busch stays out. And the way NASCAR does their timing and scoring, they don't, like at Tri-City where I'm race director, we have a program, and if somebody gets off a lap or something because of something that happens with the computer, then we just push a button in the computer and we add a lap or we subtract a lap and we fix it that way. NASCAR does not do that. NASCAR has to have them cross the line to make these laps up or to get rid of these laps. So now you have the top 3 cars are behind a lap on Kyle Busch, who's now the leader. And if you're watching online, on TV or online or whatever, all the results were wrong because they had Kyle Busch as the leader. And they ended up calling the race. They didn't want to put the cars back out there. But it was all kind of a cluster. And I heard him on the radio. They told Brett, stay out, stay out, stay out. And then he comes down pit road anyway. And they're yelling, no, we told you to stay out. It was really interesting because usually NASCAR, if you ever listen to NASCAR's radio, they're very professional over the radio. And it was really interesting to hear it just kind of all go to heck at the end of this race.
Well, and you didn't get that watching the TV broadcast. Actually, Fox did a good job of clarifying what had happened. And it was actually pretty...
I was standing next to Jamie Little on pit road as it was happening. Jamie Little and what's the girl's name on MRN that used to be Miss Sprint Cup? I can't think of her name.
Kuhn?
Yes, Kim Kuhn. Both of them are standing there on pit road right next to me because I'm standing there waiting to get a picture of the checkered of him getting the race. And so they're both going like, what's going on? What's going on? And so it's kind of fun to be a part of that discussion there on pit road.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it was. It didn't seem crazy on our end, but it was weird to see it on TV because Jeff Gordon was explaining what had happened and
right.
Mike Joy and so on, and Darryl doesn't know anything that's going on. So it was nothing short of normal for them.
On Friday, I went out to get my scanner programmed, and I went out I was walking past the tower. And, of course, they were getting ready for Xfinity practice, I think. And I see this golf cart that's like the nicest golf cart you'll ever see pull up. It really was like a mini car. Pulls up, and out comes DW to go up in the tower, and somebody yells, DW! He goes, what? It was pretty funny.
Oh, that's great.
So, anyway, race was rain delayed, first of all, about 2.5 hours, I think, before we got started on Sunday. And then we ended up shortening the race as well. Basically, we got farther than halfway because halfway is not where we call the race anymore. Now we have to go to the end of the second stage. I guess, so here's the thing. We had 2 races, rain delayed and ended early because of rain this weekend, the Xfinity race and the Cup race. At the track, the forecast for both days, we weren't racing. I mean, if you would have looked at the forecast in the morning and just said, should we race or not, you would have said no. There was no point in even trying. We were watching the radar. It was not going to happen either day. Both days we got an official race in. Both races seemed very rushed on NASCAR's end. They did some things that they don't normally do, such as, really rushing cautions. There were, somebody spun. I think there was a spin in the Xfinity race, and they didn't waive the caution. You never see that at some place like Michigan. But they were doing everything they could to get that race in. Both races get past, the official distance, but just barely. So the question is, did NASCAR do the right thing this weekend? And is it better to run a rain-shortened race, even if you know you're not going to get the full distance in? Is it better to run that on the day it's scheduled, or just say, okay, forget it, let's wait till tomorrow when we know we can run the full race? What do you think, James?
I don't think anybody's screaming that this was a bad thing that happened this weekend. I think everybody's glad that they got the show in. And, there's no guarantees. We say that about a lot of things. So you can say, let's just cancel it and run it Monday, but you never know.
Right.
You're
going to lose a lot of people. And they lost a lot of people Sunday anyway. The stands were very, very empty for a Cup race at Michigan, especially with all the stands that were removed at Michigan prior to this race. But
you got to applaud the track and NASCAR for being able to get these races in just as much as they could. We've talked about it on the podcast many times, and we've talked about it in person, but we've had the race where we had to go down on a Tuesday, and it just drags on and drags on. So, and it was, in NASCAR's credit, they put on a good show. Both races were pretty decent. I mean, it wasn't a, shoot, if anything, shorter races might be a good thing.
I'll tell you what, I think
we learned a lot.
Dave Moody's got a line. He says that the worst thing in the world on race day is rain. The best thing in the world on race day is the threat of rain. And that was the truth. I mean, everybody raced hard throughout, not knowing what was going to happen and not knowing for sure when it was going to end. And you had some big strategy calls at the end of the Cup race as a result. You had strategy at the end of the Xfinity race as a result. I agree. I mean, personally, I was really bummed Sunday because I was going to have to make the decision whether to take another day off work and spend another night in a hotel to cover the race that I specifically went down there to cover,
right?
Or go home. And I know fans are in the same boat.
You had the Jeff Gluck dilemma.
Yeah, exactly. And I was leaning towards not staying, and then I saw that the forecast looked better in the afternoon. But, I mean, the thing is, NASCAR has a policy where they can move the startup as much as an hour, but they have to make that call 24 hours in advance. And when we went home Saturday night, there was no worry. The forecast was great. We were golden. We had a 30% chance of rain. And, Michigan, the next day comes and there's rain coming in, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I was an hour north of the track this weekend, and no rain at all.
Yeah.
Not one drop. It was just weird to see on TV how you guys were struggling and how it just was a whole different world, and we were just not that far away. It was
right.
It was pretty crazy.
I think NASCAR did a spectacular job this weekend. Bob Pockrass did the math, so you don't have to. 97 minutes in the Xfinity race, from the first Air Titan jet dryer to get on the track to the green flag for the Xfinity race. So
big track too.
2-mile track, 97 minutes to dry it. They did a heck of a job of drying that thing and getting it race ready, getting it in good condition. I think we had great races both days, and the Xfinity race felt a little short. Cup race, I was perfect with that length.
Yeah,
I was good.
Long weekend by that point. I mean, you went down there. Yeah.
I'm totally fine with that, especially when it's 6:00 at night or whatever, and you got a couple hours of waiting in the media center and writing stories and getting your stuff together before you can leave, and then a 3-hour drive home. So I was perfectly fine with them calling it when they did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else on the Cup race? Anybody we want to? I guess I have the results here. Anybody we want to single out at all here?
We already talked about Stuart Haas. I think we should give Kyle Busch a little credit for carrying the banner of the other manufacturers, because boy, did the Fords kick everybody's butt.
He was pretty good spirits after the race too. I did walk over by him after he got out of the car, and
I tell you what, just seeing what the Fords were able to do on Sunday is such a this whole season, it's just, that is a mountain that these other teams are going to have to figure out how to climb, and I don't see them making any ground.
Right.
Michigan's a track of pure horsepower, and all of those Fords, it was gangbusters. You got Paul Menard sneaking up there in the top 5, for God's sake. So
right.
It's just, I don't know. I've never seen a manufacturer. This goes back to even Toyota's dominance of recent memory, but Toyota was never this dominant. These Fords are just flexing.
Here's the thing, though. It's not Ford. It's not Ford. It is Roush Yates. It's Roush Yates Motors, man.
Roush Yates Power is definitely
I'm telling you. And Chocolate Myers said on Sirius yesterday, I think it was yesterday, he made a comment that when Earnhardt was running, Earnhardt would talk about Davey and say, I can beat Davey. I just can't beat Robert Yates, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good just way to segue into Kyle Busch's driver talent. I think in Kyle Larson as well.
Yeah.
The fact that those guys have been able to compete up front for the majority of the season when you're going against this juggernaut of the Fords.
Right.
It won't be such a, we'll go to Sonoma and that's kind of an equalizer. And we'll go to other tracks that are
but the bread and butter are these 1.5 and 2 milers.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say. When we go to Homestead and Kyle Busch is, and especially as many points as Kevin Harvick has already piled up, Kyle Busch knows that Stewart-Haas team's already working on that championship 4-car for that championship race. That's even more of a monster to climb. So it's just going to be, it seems like an insurmountable hill, but that's why we love sports. That's what, I mean, as a fan of sports, that's what I want to see. I want to see Kyle Busch try to knock that giant down.
So I have a question for you.
It's going to be good.
There was a lot of talk going into this weekend of the big three. The big three. Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, and who the
Truex?
heck's- Yeah, Truex, sorry.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's you answered your own question.
No, but that's not my question. So the talk was the big three. Who's the fourth? And everybody's talking Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's the fourth. Kyle Larson's the fourth. Kyle Larson hasn't won a race yet this year.
Yeah.
This win this weekend, I know it was a rain-shortened race, but does this make Clint Bowyer the fourth?
No.
Is it a sign that he can be?
No.
You don't think so, huh?
No, I don't think he's got that kind of talent to be able to pull it off. I just don't think he's a championship driver. He's better than.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah, I think when push comes to shove, I just don't think he's that guy. But, and we talked last week on the podcast, and I had some reservations about even putting Truex on that top tier.
Yeah.
And he didn't really have a good showing at Michigan.
No,
so,
he was terrible.
Yeah. Where's he at? And maybe Michael Waltrip is to blame for Martin's performance.
God.
If you guys didn't see that disaster,
I made my way. I had to go to that end of pit road during the pre-race just so I could witness the ridiculousness that is the grid walk, and I got to see the tail end of it.
It's so bad.
It's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah, but I think just to go back to our point really really quick, and maybe to just kind of I wanted to put a period on it.
Yeah.
I think we have a 2-horse race, and everybody else is just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
So.
I don't even know that we have a 2-horse race, to be quite honest. I really don't think we do.
Yeah, I just don't think you can look past Kyle Busch.
No, you can't.
He's too good. He's too dang good. And the Toyotas, they're not as close as the Fords are, but
Kyle's
they're
definitely the closest challenger.
Yes.
But I don't think he's much of a challenger. I mean, obviously the way this system works, you only need you have to have that one good race at the end. If you screw that one race up.
That's why Kyle Larson's in everybody's conversation.
Right.
He has the ability to have that good race. He's just got to get there.
Right. But I mean, I'll tell you what, Harvick doesn't screw up. Harvick wins that race. There's no way.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean,
Harvick should have. Yeah, exactly. Harvick should have won.
No, I'm saying Homestead. If he doesn't screw up at Homestead, he's going to win.
Yeah.
And that's just. And I mean, unless a lot changes. I mean, obviously we're just past halfway of the regular season, so a lot can change.
But Kyle Busch has gone toe to toe with him this year for the most part, and Kyle Busch might not be in equipment that's at the same level as Harvick, but I tell you what, he's gone punch for punch with him, and he's put up numbers that are fairly similar, and it's just it's a testament to that team and to the talent of the driver. He's got teammates who are not performing to his standards,
right?
And it's very similar to what Larson's doing. Larson to a lesser extent. Larson's definitely punching above his Chevrolet weight class, but nevertheless, Kyle Busch. I just feel like, there's plenty of time for them to hit on one more thing that they need, whatever that it factor is, and there's time for Harvick to come back to the pack. So we got a long way to go, but I just think it's those two guys, and everybody else is kind of, standing there with their arms up, like, what are we gonna do?
Right.
Well,
we'll come back to Larson in a little bit here. Let's see. Let's look down the list here. Chase Elliott comes home with a 9th. Ryan Blaney ran well. He finished 8th. Logano and Kozlowski rate together 6th and 7th. You mentioned Truex. Truex finished 18th, one spot ahead.
It was never a factor. Yep.
One spot ahead of Bubba Wallace. Jimmy Johnson 20th. Casey Kane came home 23rd. He had a decent race, ran up front.
I wish he would have stayed out. I wish he would have stayed out just to see what he would have done.
I can't believe nobody stayed out on that last.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who it was. Somebody asked, I think Claire B. No, I don't know who it was. Somebody asked Bugga why nobody stayed out, and he didn't know. I mean, it's like,
do what everybody else does. I guess.
I don't get it.
Kane could have got out of there with a top 10 finish if he would have just stayed out.
Well, that was the argument, is that you had to be able to beat those 3 guys.
Yeah, you just couldn't,
and you weren't going to. They weren't good enough to beat them.
Yeah, the only person, if Kyle Busch could have gotten to the front, maybe held them off for a lap,
right?
If anything, but yeah, you're going to get swallowed up by those Fords. They were just too powerful.
Garrett Smithley, I believe it was his first Cup Series race, ran 1 lap and finished last, 39th.
Trans-Am. Yep.
And let's see, Matt Kenseth comes home 33rd after a spin. Gets rewarded with some extra races this year, so that's good for him.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in a minute too.
Yeah.
So all in all, I think it was a good race. I thought the racing was really good. I thought it was exciting. I was down inside the track all race, so standing in the rain because it pretty much misted the whole thing. So I only saw the front stretch for the most part, but I thought things went pretty smooth. I think the racing was good. I think it was one of the better Michigan races for the Cup Series.
Yeah. Shorter races. Let's do it.
Definitely. So I want to hit on the Xfinity Series race real quick here just because I was there for it. And, a little bit more familiar with what happened there. First of all, Austin Dillon comes out and gets the win. Breaks a 55-race winless streak for RCR in the Xfinity Series, which is kind of a surprise. Doesn't seem like it's been that long. But
I have a good tweet. You keep filibustering for me because I have a good tweet on all of Austin Dillon's most recent wins, and I'm going to get to it in just a second because it's good.
Well, his post-race is pretty good, too. I got a chance to ask him a question in the post-race, asked him how the rain affect their strategy, and he basically said the rain was their strategy. They planned their whole day around the rain and when it was going to come, and it worked out for them to get the win in the Xfinity Series race. So let's see. So RCR gets a 1-2 there with Austin Dillon and Daniel Hemrick coming home first and second. So you find your tweet yet, James, or am I still filming?
Oh, I'm looking at Nick Bromberg's tweets, and I can't find the dang thing. Hang on.
So let's see. Kyle Busch dominated the race for the most part, leading 29 laps for 2 times. Early in the race, pretty much led the first stage, almost the entire first stage. Then pitted, and I led a couple more laps there, and then that was it. Austin Dillon leads 18 laps. Kevin Harvick was up front for a bit for 10 laps. Elliott Sadler led 10 laps before he decided to cut off. I don't remember who he cut off, but I remember he yelled at him after the race. And
that was a whole thing. They said they cleared the air.
Yeah, they cleared the air. Well, of course they cleared the air because Elliott Sadler probably watched the video and realized he was stupid for yelling at him.
Yeah,
because it was all his fault.
Of course, right. Yeah, I did find my tweet now.
Okay, go ahead.
I was diving deep onto. So this is Nick Bromberg. I think we've talked about him on the podcast.
I like Nick Bromberg.
Yeah, he's not afraid to go after people, and he went after Austin Dillon. So this is good. So Austin Dillon's last 5 NASCAR wins. So this is all major series. Fontana, gifted a win by Kyle Busch flat tire. Bristol, top 3, crash late. Austin Dillon gets the win. Charlotte, wins via fuel mileage. Daytona, wrecks Eric Almirola on the last lap. Michigan, the race is called after 3/4 of a lap restart. So he's had some luck, according to Nick Bromberg. I don't know if he's just challenging Austin Dillon's legitimacy or not, but I just thought that was interesting. I think when you're dealing with a rain shortened race, whatever happens. And, yeah, you have to put yourself in position no matter what. Everybody's playing with the same rules, but
this race should have started raining about 20 laps before it did. There was rain over the track on the radar. I don't know how it didn't rain before it did, but we knew it was coming and we were watching it real close.
Sure.
So
And it's one of those. Yeah, rain is just. It's the same thing as when you talk about the season in the big picture or not. Everybody's got the same rules. So
yeah,
you just
I
make
think
the best of what you can.
the biggest bummer of the weekend was I got to the track at 8:00 in the morning on Sunday, and it did not start raining on Sunday. There was not a drop of rain until about 1:30 when they started driver intros. That was a bummer.
That's usually how it works.
Yep. So the main reason I want to talk about the Xfinity Series is we ran for the second week in a row the new aero package with the air ducts on the front ends and the restrictor plates. And I wanted to get your opinion on it, James, what you thought. I kind of have mixed feelings on this package at Michigan. I thought it was a good race, but I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it was fine. It didn't stand out to me as anything special.
I don't feel like Michigan needed help in the Xfinity Series.
No, it looked like a restrictor plate race, and I'm still very much conflicted on the package. And right now, I think that the three races we've seen with these similar rules for Xfinity and Cup, I think the package is maybe 1 for 3 as far as a big hit. The All-Star race was a ton of fun. Pocono was a bust, and this one was it was okay. I mean, it was a good race, so I guess you could say it worked.
The field was closer together. I will give them that. The field was closer together. The leader never broke away. You didn't break away with anything more than a 3-car pack.
Yep. Boy, you could tell the cars were slow though.
Yeah.
On TV, they looked like they were crawling.
Well,
and I think that's we're not used to seeing it that way.
When they went in, if you went to the inside of somebody, you went backwards. If you needed help with another car, there was no way to pass somebody without help. It was impossible. So I think there's something there. I don't think this is the final what's going to work. However, I don't know how much of this is because of the rain either, because we did have that single file Talladega Daytona mindset of let's just cruise until it looks like the rain's close and then we'll try and race. And the ending was kind of exciting. There was a little bit more battling at the end, but practice was nuts. I don't know if you watched practice, James.
Yeah, practice. Well, I saw the highlights, and you guys were doing. Everybody who was at the track was doing a great job of just showing highlights. And I think there was a lot of speed discrepancy with some of those guys. It looked crazy.
I was leaning on the fence in turn 1 as they roared by me in a pack of about 15 cars, and I'll tell you what, it was pretty freaking crazy from there.
Well, if one thing, and you just kind of mentioned this, and I wanted to just go into it just a little bit more with you and get your thoughts. You talked about how the cars kind of got in a single file line and rode.
Right.
I think that is something we need to be cognizant of with this package. If we're going to take this package different places in the future, and that's the way that these drivers are going to attack these tracks, we don't want to watch cars single file and trying to survive the last. I mean, sure, the last quarter of the race is going to be, maybe the best racing you'll ever see, but it's also kind of a worry. I don't know. It's just it's something maybe to be aware of.
Well, let's pump the brakes on that because I have a lot more to talk about this package coming up in the podcast, but I want to hit on a couple news items first before we get there. I probably should have put this stuff here.
You're fine.
We could continue it, but I don't want to get into it because it's going to be long because there's a lot of audio clips. So let's hit on a couple news things real quick. We'll come back to the aero package. So
this would be a great spot for a sponsor to come on board and say, hey, before we talk about that, we wanted to tell you about.
That would be excellent. Yeah. So if you guys want to sponsor, there is information on the website, thesuperspeedway.com. Check it out and get in touch with us.
Sponsors really help with transitions.
Yes, they do. If you want to slap your ad on our podcast here. So the 2019 Xfinity and Gander Outdoors Truck Series schedules were released today. Was it today, James?
Today, yep, this afternoon.
You were talking about it. I haven't clicked on the link yet, but you were talking a little bit about it. What are our big changes? You said Truck Series was the big deal, really, right?
Yeah, Truck Series is really the bigger deal. There's nothing really of note on the Xfinity Series. Season for the Xfinity Series kicks off February 16th, so that means your Daytona 500 is February 17th. Which I think we already knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything's pretty much the same. The Truck Series, there's 2 big schedule changes. And no, we're not going to any new tracks. Bummer. But we are moving our fall Texas race from the fall to March 29th. That's I saw that they were doing that as a way to help Fox with some of their broadcasting. And also there's been that giant month off that the Truck Series has had for forever. So that's going to break that up just a little bit. It'll only be it's still going to be about a month off by the time they get past Easter. So they're going to go from March 29th till May 3rd before the next race for the Truck Series. So that's still a long gap, but without that Texas race there, it would have been even longer. So That'll help. That'll help the early season for the Truck Series, and then
The Nagats.
then the guy. Yeah,
That's the new acronym. Nagats.
got. I like that.
Or you could just be the Gots in the N is silent.
Well, it's better than calling the Cup Series the Menzies Series, is what I always call it.
Yeah.
So it's not good.
Yeah.
So and then the other big schedule change is Eldora moves back to August 1st, and that's typically run when? That's early July what?
July like 23rd-ish, 24th-ish.
A couple weeks.
But there's another thing of note with Eldora is it is also Thursday now. Next
It is
year,
a Thursday. Yeah,
instead
that's
of
correct.
Wednesday. So
Yep, it's a
we'll be back
Thursday
a day,
night.
too.
Yep, we're on Thursday night, August 1st. So that's interesting. I don't know why they're picking Wednesday over Thursday.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Eldora's got some stuff going on that might be of support for the entire weekend. So
I don't know. It's odd. It's really interesting. Kind of bummed because I like the way it matches up with the Cup Series right now with Kentucky being the weekend before. So that's what I'm doing this year. I'm hitting Kentucky and then going to Eldora.
Well, if we look at that August weekend for the Xfinity Series, they're going to be in Watkins Glen. So, the Cup Series will then be on August 4th. Right. So yeah, they're going to go from the NASCAR Series will go from Eldora to Watkins Glen instead of Eldora to Indy, is what they usually used to do. Right. And then this year it's all messed up because Indy's moved. So we are seeing some schedule changes here in the in this 2019 season. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. All right. I mentioned earlier Matt Kenseth's going to get some more races, 10 more races this season. Let me quick hit the link here, and I'll tell you what races those are going to be.
Yeah, I looked at it earlier this year, too. He's somebody had reported from MIS that he wasn't racing until September, and then Pockrass was quick to note that there was going to be some dates coming. So
so Kentucky, he'll be back July 14th, and he'll do Kentucky, Loudon, Pocono, and Watkins Glen 4 in a row, and then he comes back in September at Darlington, and Indianapolis, Dover, Martinsville, Phoenix, and Homestead. So
basically, Roush Fenway is saying every race that's not an Advocare race is now yours.
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically the way I'm reading that, because Bain's going to run Michigan in August, and he's got a few more coming up.
Yep.
So, and he's racing this week, or the weekend in Sonoma too, right? That's going to be a Bain race. I think.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. Matt Kenseth has not been good.
No.
Since he's been with Roush Fenway.
No, but I don't think. I mean, I think some of the fans expect him to go and do well, but I don't think the team did.
Yeah, his average finish is technically worse than what Trevor Bain was running, but he's only run 4 races, so a little bit smaller sample size. So we'll see. Right. I don't know. I still don't know about this move. I kind of was against it at the start, but it's not my team to run either. So
yeah. So we got some news Sunday morning that Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and Eric Jones were going to be moving to the back of the field for the Cup start because of issues with the splitter. Well, NASCAR came down on them with some fines and penalties after the race. Let's see, they lost $25,000 fine to the crew chiefs, car chiefs, suspended for the next Monster Energy Series event for all 3 cars for splitter. Splitter did not meet rule specifications. So what they were talking about on the TV broadcast is that the splitter has to be flat on the bottom, and that's a lot of teams were working in that area, and NASCAR cracked down on that, I think, last season. And basically the issue was it was flat on the bottom, and I don't know how much of this was accurate and how much of it was speculation, but when they bolt it to the car, it manipulates it enough to where it's not flat on the bottom anymore, and that's what got busted in the post-race tech. So little things, whatever they can do to try and gain that edge, and they got busted for it. So
yep, they did. They got cracked pretty good. I mean, it's not that big of a penalty, but
right. So I want to talk a little bit about there were some news items that happened at Michigan this weekend, and one of them that I think is not getting, I didn't see it get any press, and I'm surprised everybody kind of glanced over it because everybody talks about Kyle Larson being really vanilla.
You gave it some press.
Yeah, I tried to. Kyle doesn't speak out a whole lot, and he spoke out this weekend.
Yeah, I was proud of him.
Yeah, on the. I
texted you that too because you texted me before, and it wasn't even online yet.
Yeah.
And you had texted me and said, "Hey, Kyle had said something pretty interesting here," and I was like, "That a boy."
Yeah,
I like that.
So Kyle Larson says that. Well, I'll let him say it, but he says that the Chevys. He got a question about how they're performing. Basically, I think Claire B. Lang asked the question how they're performing with the struggles that Chevrolet's having, and here's what Kyle Larson had to say about it.
I've never felt like Chevys have been at a disadvantage this year. Our team has been pretty solid every race. I think some of the teams maybe just use it as an excuse, where we don't do that. Obviously I don't think we're as fast as what we were at this point last year, but I don't think we're that far off either. And honestly, I feel like maybe we're kind of where we were at last year. Just other teams are a little bit better. We're making our cars better every week. The guys in the shop are really excited about every car that we've been bringing to the racetrack because there's little things that have made them better each week. That's exciting. I feel like the engine department with Hendrick Engines, I don't feel like we're lacking there at all. They're doing a really good job. We just got to get probably some more downforce and just overall performance, and at least the 42 team will be right there competing for wins every week.
So Kyle said this Friday morning in the media center before qualifying. He then promptly followed it up by qualifying 26th for the race at Michigan, and no Chevrolets qualified in the top 10. Top qualifier was Ryan Newman in 11th. So James, are other teams making an excuse? Does Chevy have a disadvantage, or does Ganassi just have have a little bit better going for him right now for the Chevrolets?
I think Ganassi's got the best wheelman of all the Chevrolet drivers.
I think that's helps.
That's not named Jimmy Johnson, but
right.
Hendrick's got a lot of other issues. I think it's a little bit of both, and I don't want to be sit on the fence purposefully here, but I think the Chevys are struggling, and they are somewhat at a disadvantage. But Kyle is also right saying there's excuse making, but that's politicking too. Right. Same thing Brad was doing last year, trying to help the Fords
Brad's
out.
Still doing it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Brad's always talking, and we'll get back to him a little bit later too.
Yeah, really soon actually.
Yeah, I'm really glad Kyle Larson said that though, because somebody needs to light a fire in the Chevy camp, and maybe Larson's the guy to do it. He obviously had a fast car at the track though. Sunday he was fast. He just had issues, and it cost him. But yeah, Hendrick's been making excuses for 3 years now that their cars aren't that good. So it's a little bit of both, but I'm just glad to see Kyle Larson kind of being somewhat of an elder statesman here and speaking up. That's a good thing.
That was the thing with me is he doesn't ever say anything bad about anybody, and it was kind of interesting to hear him say that people are making excuses. We don't do that here. We just do what we can and fix what we can and get out there and race. And
yeah, and I think he's used to that being at Ganassi. I think that has to be your mindset there. They're not a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Well, I think they take what they can get, and they do the best they can.
Yeah, I don't see Ganassi as a big whiner for rule changes and stuff. He doesn't come across to me like a Jack Roush that is constantly politicking for a rule change. So
yes.
So I just thought that was interesting. I didn't see it get hardly any press this weekend, and I kind of thought that it should have. So
I would like to see Larson in one of those Stewart-Haas Fords. I would like to see that.
See what he does.
Oh, she was driving the 14. Sorry, Clint. My bad.
So then here's the big one, and I'm sure most of you guys, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably listen to, a bit of NASCAR stuff. You've probably already heard at least some of this audio clip I'm going to play from Brad Keselowski. So first of all, let me start this by saying there were several drivers that made appearances in the media center this weekend. Nobody got questions like Brad Keselowski did, because everybody knew they could throw hardball questions at Brad and he was going to talk and he was going to give them honest answers. And I respect that. I mean, Brad was not getting any softball questions. Everybody was throwing stuff at him. He came into the weekend complaining about the tire, and I didn't go into the tire stuff because obviously the tire wasn't an issue. It's not a news story anymore, but he was complaining about the tire and the fact that he was on the press release. We talked about it last week. He was on the press release for doing this tire test, and he didn't like the tire choice that they made. And so anyway, there's a lot of stuff thrown at Brad. And Brad has been speaking out about this All-Star package, which is the same package the Xfinity cars ran this weekend. It's the package we ran at the All-Star race. And there's a lot of talk that we're going to run it at least a couple times yet this year in the Cup Series. So bear with me. It's a long clip, and I got another one coming right after it. But Brad had a lot to say, and it basically feels that changing to this package, he doesn't really get into this, I don't think, in the clip. So he talks about that it makes the cars too easy to drive, and it's not going to challenge drivers enough to make them want to stick around in the Cup Series. So here's what Brad had to say about the All-Star package, and we'll discuss it afterwards.
I think that package needs to remain solely at the All-Star race. I think that a lot of the drivers in this sport are in a position where they chose cup racing because of the demands that the cars take to drive. And I think there's a lot of fans that come to our races expecting to see the best drivers. I think if you put a package like this out there, like what we had at the Charlotte All-Star race, on a consistent basis, that the best drivers in the world will no longer go to NASCAR. They'll pick a different sport. That won't happen overnight. That'll happen over time. And I think that would be a tragedy to this sport because the best race car drivers want to go where they can make the biggest difference to their performance. And there's no doubt that you make less of a difference with that configuration, with that rules package. So with respect to that, I'm thankful that it improved the watchability, the show per se for the All-Star race. I think that those are important things to do. But I think we should always be mindful of our responsibility as a sport to make sure that best drivers are able to showcase their talent. And I'm apprehensive that coming with a package like that on a larger scale for the sport will, in time, deteriorate the ability for drivers to make a difference, and that they will look for other racing venues to achieve that. So it's a very interesting trade-off. I think of the three things that I like to see at a race, and I think of fast cars. I think I want to see the best race car drivers, and I want to see a great finish. Those are the three things I want to see. I think that package achieved one of those three and hurt the other two. And in that sense, I consider it a net loss overall. So I know that's a tough question for NASCAR to really wrap their heads around. It's a tough question for us to wrap our heads around, but believe me, I saw the fan videos of people in Charlotte standing on their feet. But part of that is because of the legacy that the sport has to have the best drivers. And I think over time that'll deteriorate. I think we've seen that with IndyCar. It was pretty obvious to me that a decade ago, if you wanted to see the best racing in the world, it was, quite honestly, it was in IndyCar. They ran 3-4 wide and put on some great shows. Unfortunately, long term, that didn't translate to the fans. That didn't translate to better ratings than NASCAR. There's a lot of reasons for that. I would speculate that some of it has to go back to the fact that the best race car drivers in the world were here in NASCAR. And we saw that when IndyCar drivers came over here and didn't find success. And they weren't just any IndyCar drivers, they were some of the best. So with respect to that, I think we have to tread very lightly with the next steps of this sport. I like the idea of picking one or two races and running that package. I think that makes sense. But if we, overdose on that particular format of racing, it will have, in my opinion, some severe long-term negative effects. So it's a very interesting equation to see play out. We're all watching together how it's going to play out. I think we all have a little role, from the media to the drivers to the fans, etc. But I think, long term, if you want to know what the All-Star package would look like if it was ran in NASCAR full time, look no further than IndyCar. They've already proved it, and they had great racing. They had a number of fatalities associated with that racing that was unfortunate. They had a short, unsustainable boost in their fans for those races when they first went to those packages, and then it trailed off. So with respect to that, I think that's where if I was forecasting to the future, that's how I see it. But I don't know what decision NASCAR is going to make. It's their decision. All I can do is give my input. At this time, those are my strongest thoughts.
So Brad said more about it. There was a lot more talk about it as well after this. And I think I gave credit to Claire Lang for asking that question. It was Jeff Gluck that asked that question, so I want to make sure Jeff gets the credit for it. Obviously got a nice long-winded answer from Brad. Now, I did want to comment before we move on to the next comment that Brad says that fans left IndyCar because the best drivers in the world weren't racing IndyCar. I want to remind everybody that people left IndyCar because of IndyCar, period. They left IndyCar because of the IRL, because you had the kart series and you had Indianapolis, the Indy 500, and when they started the IRL, they decided they were going to give the top almost like all the positions to drivers that are racing the IRL and left the kart drivers out. So kart left, and they split into 2 series, and that's what drove the fans away from IndyCar. It was not because of rules packages and drive. I mean, so let's get that straight. Let's start with that. James, any comments on what Brad had to say before we hear what Mark Martin had to say on it?
No, I'll just say that Brad's not wrong. I don't think he's wrong. He says in his comments that he's speculating as well, and he's also talking long term and massive distribution of the package. So I don't think he's wrong. I think we can disagree with some of what he's said, but he gives great insight to what I think a lot of the current drivers are worried about. We've heard Kyle Busch say similar things too.
Right.
And a lot of drivers are concerned. I think Brad puts voice to that.
Well, we had, and I didn't pull the clip, but Austin Dillon said in the Xfinity race after winning the race that he says it's a different type of driving, yes, but it still takes a lot of skill to win these races. And I know Austin Dillon's a restrictor plate guy. Austin Dillon just won the race. He's going to praise the package. Yep. I get that. But at the same time, let's look at restrictor plate races. Yes, you see those guys running from the back and getting wins, but who's usually up front winning restrictor plate races? It's still your top guys. The cream still rises to the top. So I don't know that I buy that. I do agree that if the bigger drivers in the sport leave, that the sport's gonna struggle. I don't know. The drivers, the best drivers in the world are gonna be where the money is. The money is gonna be where the fans are. And so if the fans want this package and they decide this is the package that they need to run, and they support it and come back to the track and watch the races, those drivers are still going to race here because they want the biggest fan support they can get. They want the biggest paycheck that they can get. Let's not be, we don't have to play any games there. That's what they're there. And they should be. I mean, this is their career. They risk their lives for this career. They should get paid for it. So I don't 100% agree. Now, I'm not set on this package yet. And I'm really, if they were said tomorrow that we're running this package next year, we're going to do all the mile and a half with this package, I'd say, because this has not been tested enough.
Yeah.
But
I'd be upset. I would be very upset.
I am okay with fiddling some. But let's hear what Martin had to say, because he had some really interesting points too. This clip I don't believe has gotten much, if any, play whatsoever. But Martin was at MIS. He says he's not a driver anymore. He's a fan. He had some really interesting things to say. He was doing pace car rides in the morning. I'm beating myself up, man. I should have done a pace car ride with Mark Martin. I've ridden around MIS with a Hall of Famer.
Oh, man.
And I was doing some other stuff, and it's like, I don't want to stand in line and do that. But I should have done it. So anyway,
did it.
Here's what Mark had to say about, I can't remember exactly because it's a 5-minute clip, so I apologize for that. But he talks about the package a little bit. I think he talks a little bit about the state of NASCAR. So here's what Mark had to say, and we'll discuss some more.
Racing in NASCAR is supposed to be the hardest, most difficult thing that you could ever try to do as a race car driver, is to drive and race one of these things and be successful. And it really, really hurts me to think about if we're going to change that to satisfy Johnny-come-lately fans. I think what's wrong with the sport being what it is? What's wrong? You got to be careful, because you've already there's a lot of old-time supporters of this sport that are already dissatisfied with how many changes. So, you don't want to alienate the rest of those, trying to appeal to what appears to me like an impossible situation to satisfy some of the newer fans of the sport. I don't think it's possible, and I also don't think you can make everybody happy. And you have to look at the whole sport, and the sport in general. And if 50% is for something, then 50% is not. And, there is some integrity that I feel that needs to be maintained in the sport. There are some issues that could be addressed, about our racing, but artificially making the racing exciting for a portion of the fans, to me, is not what I'd rather see that in yesterday's race, not today's race. I'd just rather see that another way. I've bought into many of the changes. I bought into the chase. I'm good with the playoffs. I'm good with the double file restarts. I'm good with the segment racing. I like it. But, man, if you're going to change, and I know the cars, I said 20 years ago that these cars had outgrown Daytona and Talladega, and that's why we had to do this. Well, you know what? They're almost to outgrow, and I said they were going to. They'll outgrow these other speedways. And I just don't think, making these races more Daytona Talladega style, I don't have a lot of interest in watching that. And I'm the biggest fan out there. I watch every race, or follow it any way I can. And I know, because I see people all the time, and they say, hey, I don't like all these changes. Well, I say, well, I do, but I just don't think it's the right thing to do to turn our racing at all these mile and a halves and bigger into restrictor plate style racing. That's just my opinion, and I think there's a lot of people that agree with me. Fans, I'm not a driver anymore. I think there's a lot of fans that agree with that, The people that are, the fans that are bashing the racing are in my opinion, they're not real fans. They're looking for something different than auto racing. Everybody that liked racing loved racing back when I first got into NASCAR. And if there were 3 cars on the lead lap at the finish, they still saw a hell of a race. That's what I think. I think we should continue to be true to what we are and where we came from, and I think the racing is really, really good now.
So Martin hit on something that I agree very much so, and that's I worry about how much NASCAR is trying to change to please the people, the social media people that have nothing better to do but complain about stuff.
Yep.
I mean, it gets old, and you and I have talked. The last couple of years, man, I've been. It's wearing me down hearing all the bad talk about NASCAR.
Yep. You want to know another example
Yeah.
that we can look at that people are being worn down? The NFL.
Yep.
And people are so negative on so many issues, the anthem, this, that, and the other thing. And fans are showing their disapproval by turning off the TV.
Yep.
And NASCAR on a much smaller scale has been going through the same thing for many years.
Yeah.
And I am right there with you, man. You go on social media and it is nothing but complaining and crabbiness and just Mark Pitts makes a great point there, and I'm with you guys 100%.
See, the thing is like I want to see better racing. I always want to see a better race. You never want to see a bad race, right?
Right.
So I want to see better racing. I love restrictor plate racing, but I've been nervous about this package. As much as I'm excited about this package, as much as I'm super pumped about the fact that we're almost definitely going to see this package at Michigan in August for the Cup cars. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of people question. I guarantee those teams are getting ready with their Michigan cars for August that they're going to be having this package on it. So I'm excited about it. It's cool to see it. And I would go to every restrictor plate race if I could. But I'm nervous because I like restrictor plate racing because we do it 4 times a year. If we do it every weekend, it gets old. It's just like, I love Eldora. Eldora is great, but if we ran a bunch of dirt races, Eldora would lose its fun. And so I get really concerned about that. And I don't want to go too far. I mean, this, like I said, this package has not proven itself at all.
No, it's not. Nope.
We had one good race at Indianapolis that you could have, I mean, honestly, you could have freaking done anything in Indianapolis and made the Xfinity race better there. I mean, really. You couldn't make it worse. There was no way to make that race worse than it was. So anything you do, if it's a little bit of an improvement, is going to look like a gigantic improvement there. I don't think it hurt the race at Michigan, but at the same time, I don't think the Xfinity race at Michigan needed help. There were a lot more passes for the lead. Basically, in a race that was shorter than normal, they doubled everything. They doubled their passes for position. They doubled their lead changes, essentially, is what they ended up. It's not perfect, but pretty much. In that aspect, in the stats aspect, the racing was better. But watching it, I don't know that it was. I really, personally, and I think I mentioned it on here, I would really like to see this package without the restrictor plate.
Yeah, me too.
I'd like to see what would happen with it without the restrictor plate. I'd also like to see, and I don't remember which driver it was this weekend that said it, I'd like to see this package, see what it would do at Daytona and Talladega. Would it make the racing on the actual restrictor plate tracks better with this aero package with the restrictor plates they're running now? I don't know.
Right.
But I'm afraid of NASCAR making too many changes. So Steve O'Donnell was on Sirius this week. I believe it was Monday or Tuesday. I don't know. My days have blended all together after this weekend. And he basically said, whoa. Pump the brakes, guys. Take it easy. We are not planning on running this package full time. This is talk for a few races a year, possibly, to run a package like this, to change things up, to have a little bit of a difference. I'm more comfortable with it with that, I think. But I still believe it needs a lot more testing before we do that. So am I leaving anything out, James? Do you have any thoughts on it?
No, I think, one thing that I wanted to add, just, I mean, you've covered it quite a bit, and you spoke well, which is good. And I'm glad we're kind of on the same page a little bit.
I'm mad because I really wanted to disagree with you, but I've come around. Mark really changed because I said Sunday that I had thought about Brad's comments, and I really didn't agree with Brad. And the more I thought about it, the less I agree with Brad, especially when he's using the IndyCar analogy, because that's total BS.
Yeah, the IndyCar analogy is a stretch, but Brad's gonna stretch some things out too.
Right.
I mean, that's what he does. That's what he does.
I respect Mark Martin. He's a Hall of Famer. Not that I don't respect Brad, but I respect Mark Martin. He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's got a long history in the sport, and he's not in the sport anymore. He's a fan just like us. Yeah. He's seeing it from our point of view as well as the driver's point of view. So I really respect that.
What's funny too is Brad arguably has just as good of a resume as Mark.
Yeah,
because
true.
He's got the championship.
But Brad's on the inside and only on the inside.
Exactly.
That's why I think I like Martin's opinion, because he's still been kind of fresh in it, but he's outside of it now.
Yep.
And so.
Yeah. My one big thing that I don't like is I hate punishing the leader, punishing the fast guys for being fast.
Yeah.
I feel like this package punishes you for doing your job better than anybody else and being more talented than everybody else. Let's use Kevin Harvick as the example. Kevin Harvick's out there whooping everybody's butt every week, and then we switch to this package, and he is not rewarded for what he's done,
right,
and what he's able to do. And you're putting a filter on his dominance. And I just, as a fan of sport, I find something wrong with that.
Yeah, it's such a fine line because you don't want to let somebody get too far out ahead. But at the same time, I feel like it's self-policing, too. Eventually, somebody figures it out and gets good, too.
Sure. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Have they prevented it by making all these changes? No, they just make a different guy the lead guy.
Right.
It hasn't stopped it.
Yeah, I just, it's just one of those things for me. I don't know. I feel like that, that's like somebody's scoring too many touchdowns in a football game, and now you're only allowed to kick field goals.
Right.
You know, it's just that's the way I kind of visualize it in my head, and I could be way off base there, but and I like what you said too, and I totally agree with you that I'd like to see without the restrictor plates because people don't think about this, but restrictor plates aren't designed to put on good racing. They're not designed to put on a good show.
Right.
They are designed for safety.
Exactly.
Because the cars are too fast.
Our problem is not horsepower.
Right.
Our problem is aero. We
Yes,
need to fix the aero. The problem is every time they try to fix the aero, they screw it up worse.
I was listening to Nate Ryan, and I really wanted to make sure I listened to this podcast before you and I came on today because he had Ray Evernham on.
Okay.
And one of the topics on Nate Ryan's podcast was they talked about the All-Star Aero package.
Mm.
And Ray Evernham made a really good point that I had not thought about. And he said the faster and faster these cars go, the narrower the track gets.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought of it that way. He said the with these cars the way they are right now, and it's been this way for a few years, is the line is so thin. It's so razor thin for these cars to be perfect.
Right.
And he said one thing they could consider doing is widening the tracks again. And I thought that's interesting. I never thought about it. I mean, that's like totally expensive, but that's
except that Michigan's like the widest track in the circuit, and it doesn't
Exactly.
work right now.
Right, exactly. And it put a new perspective on because Ray Evernham's going to think differently than probably anybody else. He's
Right.
one of the geniuses of the sport. So it's just NASCAR and NBC podcast. I'd go listen to that just to hear Ray's comments. They talk about a bunch of other things, but
I have the solution.
Let's hear it.
I've got it. This is it. Okay. So I don't know if I should put this out there because I probably should patent it first because it's going to make me millions. It won't. But anyway. So I think the thing that's overlooked the most, aero's our problem, right? We have a lot of problems with aero. We've been trying to make these cars boxier. So here's the deal. Next year, Toyota's switching to the Supra. Chevy's getting rid of all of their sedans. They're going to make the Camaro a sports car and some trucks. Everybody's getting rid of their cars. Everybody's getting rid of their sedans. Nobody's buying sedans anymore. Blah, blah, blah. Let's run trucks. Seriously, how good is the truck series? When was the last time you saw a bad truck series race?
Well, the problem with the truck series is there's only 2 good ones, and everybody else is struggling.
Yeah, but I mean, you have these boxy trucks. They punch a big hole in the air. You don't need the big restrictor plate on the restrictor plate tracks, or the small restrictor plate, or whatever. They run the tapered spacer, and they run a much different restrictor plate on them. I'll tell you what, maybe it's time to look at running trucks in NASCAR in the Cup Series. I'm just throwing it out there, but
I got a counter argument for you. I mean, we run trucks as it is, and it hasn't. I mean, it's still the 3rd tier series.
Yeah, but it's the 3rd tier series because of who's running in it.
Well,
and because it's not getting the billing on Sunday, they're not running 500-mile races. You put truck bodies on those Cup cars, and people are gonna watch them just like the Cup Series. They watched them when they put a wing on the back, James.
It's a great idea.
When they made them Fast and the Furious cars, people still watched.
I tell you what, you go to Steve O'Donnell, and
I am not talking to Steve O'Donnell. He walked past the red carpet, and he is an intimidating dude.
He's big dude, isn't he?
Big, man. Holy cow.
Who's bigger, him or Trace Adkins?
I don't know. Trace Adkins just scared. Trace Adkins was in the media center talking during the rain delay, and he's on the opposite side of the room, and you just hear this low rumble through the entire room.
He's a specimen, that guy.
I don't know. I don't know. They were both pretty scary.
Trace Adkins scares me. When I heard he was going to be in the media center, I was like, oh man, Eric's in trouble. That guy's huge.
I don't know what the answer is. I like the fact that NASCAR is experimenting, and it doesn't seem like they're jumping in anything. I think
just don't give the fans too much power.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing.
Don't give the fans too much power, and listen to your drivers. Seriously, nobody's going to be 100% correct, and there's going to be some games being played, but listen. Have the conversations and listen.
Well, and one thing that Brad had some truth with is if NASCAR keeps listening to the fans and they keep pushing the drivers away, somebody's going to start a competing stock car series, and it is going to kill NASCAR like it killed IndyCar.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just because one fan likes it doesn't mean the fan sitting next to you hates it.
Exactly.
And, if you give fans a voice, you're not going to please people.
Yep. You can't please everybody. There's just no way to do it.
There's nothing you can do. But I think we can find a happy medium with a lot of this.
I think so. All right, I wanted to just touch on a couple other things from Michigan this weekend. Again, great job NASCAR and MIS for getting everything in as much as they could. I got to have a hot pass for the garage this weekend. I want to give you guys a little tip. If you want to get a garage pass, it's a lot easier to get a cold pass than a hot pass, obviously. If you get a cold pass, the only time to really get excited about a cold pass is if you really want to see the cars and the crews working on the cars and see the cars parked and all that. That's pretty much all you're going to see with a cold pass, because I'll tell you what, as soon as the garage goes hot, all the drivers come out like mice in the nighttime, because I didn't see a driver at all during the cold sessions in the garage. But as soon as they went hot, there were drivers everywhere. So they know, I mean, it's not hard to tell. They put blinking lights outside the garage that say when it goes hot. So they know to stay away when all the fans are in there, and when it cools off a little bit, everybody can come out and talk and chat and all that. So that was interesting. James, I talked to you a little bit over the weekend. I think after this weekend, I may have. Now, I don't have favorite drivers as a person covering the sport. Now, I feel like it's not appropriate for me to like root for somebody. But as far as liking people's personality, I'm all right with that. I'm comfortable with that. So. I think I have a new favorite as far as personality this weekend, and that's Joey Logano. I'll tell you what, I never saw the guy without a smile on his face all weekend long. He was happy visiting with fans. He was on the Xfinity broadcast, and during the rain delay, they were playing other crap on TV, so he came over to the press box, which is right next to the TV broadcast location. He was joking with some of the spotters that were in there, eating the media food and playing video games on their iPads. While they were waiting out the rain delay, and Joey's messing around with them and stuff. And if you haven't heard Jeff Gluck's 12 Questions with Joey Logano, check that out. It's hilarious. It's really good. I don't know. I tell you what, the guy seems like a super nice guy, and I think I like the fact that he knows that a lot of people don't like him. And it's not that he doesn't care. It's just like he knows what he is, and he doesn't feel like he has to prove anything to anybody. And if they don't want to like him, they don't have to like him. But he's still him. He's still happy, and I don't know. He really impressed me this weekend. So
you would like Joey Logano. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I know the other one that really impressed me was AJ Allmendinger was the very first driver out for the red carpet. They do a red carpet from the garage area to the drivers' meeting, and he was the first driver out. He signed autographs the entire length and was one of the last drivers to go into the drivers' meeting. So awesome for him to stop by. The other one that impressed me was Daniel Suarez. Before driver intros, a lot of the drivers waited to the last minute to come out because it was drizzling and nobody wants to stand out in the rain. And so they were coming out, and some of the officials were giving them basically a shortcut to the stage so they didn't have to walk past all the fans and sign autographs and stuff. And a bunch of the drivers were taking this shortcut. And so Suarez comes out, and he's kind of heading towards the fans, and they wave him over. They're like, "Oh, no, you can come through here." And he's like, "Well, can I go that way? Like, do I have to?" And they're like, "No, you can." And he beelined straight to the fans and started visiting with people and taking photos and signing autographs. So good on Daniel Suarez for meeting with the fans too. So just a couple things I wanted to point out, a couple observations. I thought it was pretty neat. And anybody who's ever thought, man, I'd really like to go to a NASCAR Cup Series drivers meeting. Yeah, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
There were about 7,000 people crammed into that space. It was so hot in there.
We've all been to meetings.
I will never go to another driver's meeting, I don't think, unless it's like a restrictor plate track where you want to get some answers. I have no interest in going to another one.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Good to know.
But
good to know.
But good on MIS this weekend. A lot of thanks to the people at MIS for giving me the access that I got, and it was pretty cool, and they did a good job under some pretty bad circumstances, pretty much the worst circumstances you could have on a race weekend with rain almost all day Saturday and Sunday. So they did good.
And go read Eric's stuff. He did a great job writing and reporting, and it's just a lot of great content on the superspeedway.com. Photos are phenomenal. Eric always does a great job with those too. So just wanted to shout you out for your great work.
Thank you. I have a lot more photos to post too. I've got to go through them and get them up there. I've been trying to put them on social media a little bit too. So I got a bunch from Sunday. I didn't really post much from Sunday because by the time the race was over, I had to get my stuff done and get out of there. So
right.
Let's see, James. Any shout outs we want to make this week?
Nope. Not that I can think of. No, I had a good buddy of mine just had his first baby today, so
awesome.
I guess I could shout out Devlin and his wife Ashley for their welcome to the Parenthood Club.
Cool.
So I thought that was cool. So congratulations, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't really have any either. Definitely, if you guys want to give us some support, help us out getting a few more tracks this year. As far as coverage, I do have plans to hit. Definitely doing Kentucky and Michigan yet in Eldora. Hoping still to be able to do Chicago in a couple of weeks, but I don't know if it's going to work out because of when it is. So we'll see. If I can't hit Chicago, I'm going to try and do another one, possibly the Brickyard, although it's not real high on my list. So we'll see what happens, but that's my hope. So if you want to help out and us maybe even add a couple of races to it, you can check us out on Patreon. Become a patron. Help support what we're doing, and there's also some perks there for you if you decide to become a patron for us. So patreon.com/thesuperspeedway. The link's on our website at www.thesuperspeedway.com as well. If you want to follow us during the week, you can always hit us up on social media. James, how can they find you?
At James Cush on Twitter.
You can find me at TSuperspeedway on Twitter. I'm not going to bother with the personal one because I was doing all the NASCAR stuff on there this weekend. So TSuperspeedway on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/thesuperspeedway. For more of the podcast, you can visit our website, www.thesuperspeedway.com. We put show notes on there, try to link to the articles that we've discussed in the podcast. And like James said, there's a lot of writing and stuff up there from this past weekend at Michigan. There'll be a bunch of stuff throughout the summer, so check that out. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud, wherever you found us this week. We hope you subscribe. There is no race to preview this weekend because the Cup Series is off. I did want to mention, though, that it is not an off weekend for NASCAR. The Camping World Truck Series runs at Iowa on Saturday at 7 p.m. The M&M's 200, presented by Casey's General Store. And the NASCAR Xfinity Series runs the Iowa 250, presented by Enogen? I don't know how to pronounce that.
Close enough.
Sunday, 5 p.m. at Iowa Speedway as well. Fox Sports 1 and MRN will have the Xfinity broadcast and the Truck Series broadcast. So check those out. And the NASCAR Series, Cup Series, will be back at Sonoma the following weekend.
One of my favorite races.
Me too. Although I miss the old Sonoma track. I like the old, more difficult track than the new NASCArized one. But
yes.
But yeah, so we will preview Sonoma next week. We'll be back with the podcast. It'll probably be a little bit shorter, but we'll definitely preview Sonoma going to that. So anything else, James, before we head on out of here?
Nope. I whooped your butt in fantasy, so I'll make note of that. And I'm almost caught Todd. I'm so close. So I'm gonna keep talking about it until I get there.
Of course, you beat me because I actually picked drivers this week, and so.
Of course, yes. Of course. You just gotta leave it alone.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So.
And my daughter is trying to make her first appearance on the podcast.
Nice.
I can hear her yelling from the other. I don't know if anybody else can hear that, but
I couldn't hear her, so.
Yeah, she's a big talker now, so
nice.
Big deal.
Well, good. We'll have to get her a microphone. So.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna head out and go to my boys' baseball game. We recorded a little bit earlier today, James, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, we got dad duty, man.
Dad duty.
It's all good.
There you go. I was away all weekend, so I gotta get the baseball game. Actually, I came home Monday. They played Monday night too, and I came home from work and literally crashed. I set my alarm. I was gonna wake up after an hour and go watch their game, and then I had a meeting for work, and I slept for 2 hours and had to go straight to my meeting. My alarm went off, and I woke up to my alarm going off for the last hour and.
Working.
Yeah.
Working hard.
It was a long weekend and a long couple days after. So anyway, we'll be back next week to talk about Sonoma. Until then, let's go racing.